What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Sit Down Saturday. Look, since the overwhelming popular response to last week's video, I went ahead and said, let's go ahead and do the part 2 straight away. I was going to hold on to it for a little bit, but everybody seemed to be kind of on board, and I operate off positive vibes and positive energy. That's the new me. It's the new year, and simultaneously the new me. Look, we don't have a whole lot to discuss regarding house cleaning this week, but we do have a few things. Number one is the cribs video. On one hand, a lot of people were saying you should do this more often, and I agree. I try to, but make sure you've seen all of them because this isn't anything new. We've done a few of these. There's a playlist on my channel of all the collection tours, all the cribs videos you'll find in there. They should be pretty entertaining. I've tried my best to make sure they're not just very dry, so hopefully they will do the trick in regard to keeping your attention and making it somewhat of an enjoyable experience outside of just seeing what people have or how they keep it. Secondly, a lot of people said, how can I be on the cribs video? Well, it's very easy. It's usually set up to a matter of circumstantial coincidences. And what I mean by that is, if I happen to be in town, hit me up if you know I'm going to be there. Try to set something up with me. I'll come through. We can get it done. The other way to do it is invite me. Invite me, and if it's in traveling distance and you want to put my family up for the evening, not for the night, but feed us dinner, that kind of stuff. Like if we can all go, then I'll go. I'm not going to go and take 6 hours out of my day to go do that and not have my family along. So if you want to do that, we can do that as well. I'm always down to do it. Starlock, I know I got to get to you, buddy. It's my fault. I will line something up with you. But yeah, basically, if I can drive there, I'll drive there. And if I can't drive there, then I just have to be in town. Now, how do you know if I'm going to be in town or not? The best way is to listen to Nerd Rage Radio. It's a weekly podcast. Is where I keep everybody updated as to what's going on in my life, what's going on in my fandom, what's going on with my collection, what's going on with my pals, and what's going on with my traveling. So if you hear me say on there, look, we're going to Myrtle Beach, and you're like, dude, I live in Myrtle Beach, then I can swing by and get that done. So I hope that clears some of the air on that. Secondly, the one bit of house cleaning we do have to do in regard to this new age jazz, right? So I made a comment on there. The comment was about the scale. This seems to be confusing for a lot of people and probably is going to require a sit-down Saturday at some point regarding the Legend scale. But basically, for those that think it is in scale with the DX9 stuff, you are right. The problem is that with the DX9 stuff and the Unique Toy stuff and the Magic Square stuff, everybody was kind of playing in the same sandbox. New Age kind of threw a monkey wrench into that and made DX9 and New Age kind of its own thing. Those two work together. But DX9 also kind of works with Magic Square, but Magic Square doesn't work with New Age, and the same for Unique Toys. So that's where it gets tricky. That's what I mean by scale. Maybe I can get into that in greater detail someday because it seems to be a point of confusion for a lot of people. And to be honest, it was a point of confusion for me as well. No judgments here. So let's get into this. This is Season 3 and Season 4. And as you'll see, there's a lot more gaps here than there are with Seasons 1 and Seasons 2. Why? Because those are more popular seasons with more popular characters. So we'll talk about that a little bit as we get into this montage. But while we do, just keep note in your mind of what we're missing. And I think it's pretty interesting stuff how all that plays out. This is entirely subjective. It's my list. If you think something else is better than the choice that I made, obviously I think you're wrong because I would have chosen that. However, it's about what I've chosen. If you like what you have, then you win. Let us begin. So it's time for Season 3 and 4. And to be fair, the character cast of these two seasons is not as large as the first two seasons, the second season specifically. Now, that probably has a fair amount to do with the size and length of the second season, and also with the height of them at their popularity in terms of producing characters for a market to consume the toys and so forth. But there are a few that we have to go through. This will, of course, cover the 86 movie as well, so rest assured. And we'll start with Season 3, and we'll start with the Autobots. For Rodimus Prime, I think Takara Tomy is the right option. I really like the DX9 one, but it is very Studio Ox. It's one of my favorite pieces. In fact, I couldn't bring myself to sell it. If you look in the background of this particular video, you'll notice him standing on a bookshelf. But I think Takara Tomy is the right choice. I also have to give it to Takara Tomy in regards to Ultra Magnus. But Fans Toys is going to make up a large portion of this with their Cup RC and Hot Rod. Now, I think their Springer is the right choice as well. However, the MMC one, as we've discussed in the past, is really well done. I just don't think it looks as good on the shelf. As for Blur, I think the Unique Toys one is great. I'm sure the Fans Toys one will be good as well. But I think to date, that's one of Unique Toys' best releases. For Retgar and the Junkions, you're going to need to go with KFC.
as well as X-Transbots for Wheelie and Tailgate. You can get the Bad Cube Swerve and the Bad Cube Pipes, but I think the X-Transbots Pipes, aesthetics-wise, is just as good. And for Outback, I recommend the Bad Cube as well. However, it will be interesting to see if Fans Toys ever tackles an Outback remold from their upcoming Brawn. As for the Technobots, currently, I do not think there is really a suitable option. And honestly, I feel the same way in regard to that with Sandstorm, Broadside, Skylynx, Goldbug, and the rest of the Throttlebots. And even if you want to include the characters that don't transform per se, like an Alpha Trion, I'd put him in that same pocket. I also feel that for Metroplex, however, I'm kind of satisfied with using the Hasbro one just to represent the character. When you start talking about scale in the City Bots, which I've done a whole sit down Saturday on, it starts to get a little tricky and at the very least space consuming. So for now, I'm okay with the Hasbro option in regard to Metroplex. Now, 3 characters we have to talk about a little bit are Scamper, Six Gun, and Slammer. So I think the before and after Six Sigma is a really good option for Six Gun, and he comes with Slammer as well. But honestly, I also think that the Iron Factory set could be used along with the Metroplex to kind of check those boxes as well. It kind of comes down to how you see scale and how you want it to look and all that sort of thing. But I think either are decent enough choices. It comes down to a personal preference. And for Scamper, kind of the same thing if you want to use the Hasbro one that comes with Metroplex. If not, we're kind of out of luck for him at the moment. Moving on to Decepticons. The first 3 are easy. Galvatron, Fans Toys. Cyclonus, Fans Toys. Scourge, X-Transbots. Octane, I would give to KFC. That's at the moment, although that figure is far from great. Trypticon, the same rules kind of apply with the Hasbro Metroplex. I think it's a suitable option if you're okay with scale and can kind of put it in a separate place to sort of check off the representation. If you want it to scale, you're going to be out of luck for some time, I believe. But much like the Autobots, there's many characters that need representations, in my opinion, for a Masterpiece Scale Decepticon Season 3 collection. The Predacons, although the Zeta is coming and might check off your Predaking. The Terracons, Runabout, Runamuck, Overkill, and Slugfest. This kind of ties into what I talk about a lot with as you move further into the seasons of this franchise, the demand for the characters become less with few exceptions, and then ultimately the desire for these companies to produce those characters is going to become less as well. Before we move on to Season 4, I think we should address the few movie characters, basically those that are related to the Quintessons. I use the Impossible Toys representations for all of them. They're not perfect. However, I'm not sure if it's worth it to me to spend a higher dollar on a fancier Quintesson that the X-Transbots KFC folks are getting ready to release. I'm undecided. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying I'm undecided. I'm not sure if those characters mean enough to me, but it seems like some are coming. I use a combination of both the Unique Toys and iGear Sharkticons. However, if I had to pick one set, it would probably be the iGear. Neither of them are really properly scaled, but I don't think it'll bother you. Moving on to Season 4, we'll start with the Autobots. So Make Toys is the company that I would choose for a Chrome Dome, Hardhead, and hopefully they can get out their Brainstorm and Highbrow. That would make for a really sharp and clean Headmaster set of Autobots. Now they also did a Point Blank. Hopefully they can get the Crosshairs and Sure Shot out as well. Once again, that would be a really sharp team of Target Masters. And for the Autobot Monster Bots, I'm not sure if they were in Season 4 or not. Sometimes I get Season 4 and the Japanese Headmasters cartoon confused in my mind. But for them, the Fans Hobby ones are an option. However, to me, they do seem a bit out of place. Not a terrible option. Definitely will do in a pinch, but I'm not sure if it feels quite right either. For Fort Max, once again, I think the Hasbro option is decent if you can keep them further apart from your regular collection where the scale isn't as much an issue and it becomes more so about the representation of the character. It's not perfect, we all know this, but I don't think it's hateful. And then in regard to the clones, Cerebros and Punch Counterpunch, there's really no logical choice for those characters. Moving on to the Decepticons, for the Headmasters, we have Fans Toys giving you a Mind White, Weird Wolf, and Skull Cruncher. So check and check. Then we have KFC giving you an 8-face and Snapdragon. So both horror cons are checked off. Now Make Toys did tease an 8-face, but I think the other option will be more than suitable. For 6-shot, I would go Fans Toys, although the DX9 option is a suitable one as well. And there's no word on a Trigger Happy, Misfire, or Slug Slinger Target Master Masterpiece option, nor is there an option for the clones, but I would imagine that Hasbro eventually has a Scorponok in store. However, the Zarek is anybody's guess. However, I do think that we should explore the idea at very least, and I know some people can get very emotional about such things, but of this third-party non-transforming licensed Scorponok that might do the trick as well. The gigantic action thing, I'll include a picture of it, but size-wise, this might pull off the same trick that the other Hasbro options do. Just something to think about. It doesn't transform, so if that's a deal breaker, then consider the deal broken, but something to consider.
And that's where we're at. So as you can see, a lot more holes, a lot more gaps, a lot more people, kind of maybe some substitutions, maybe some stand-ins in there. There's a lot more leniency in there. A lot of the figures that we have represented there are repaints of another figure. So it's like, they're not the best representations, maybe, perhaps, etc., etc. So it's a lot more of a sliding scale in regard to gray when it comes to Season 3 and especially Season 4. Now, we might be able to go into the Japanese continuity. It will not be next week. That much I can guarantee you, because I'm going to have to do a lot of research on it, and I don't have the time. I got Skullfest coming up this week. Now, real quick for Skullfest, there's going to be tons of footage, stuff, content created from Skullfest. A fair amount of that is going to be on Patreon. There will be a sit-down Saturday in regard to a Fans Toys discussion that's going to be on this channel. Maybe a couple other fun things along the way, but for all of it, check out the Patreon. That is next weekend. It is a party. It's a great time. But the long and short of that is that I won't have time to do all the research required to do the Japanese continuity regarding G1. However, it is something we can do. And it is nice to have that kind of checklist. So I'll add it to the things to do if that's something you guys want to see, which I assume it is. I'll add it to the things that we're going to do. We're just going to have to put it later on down the line. I don't know what we're doing for next week because it's going to be really a struggle for me to get something done in time. I think people start showing up here Thursday, Wednesday. I made up. So that's about it. I hope this helped. I hope you find it as beneficial as the other. I hope I haven't made any glaring mistakes. And thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.